Welcome to the Hiding in Plain Sight podcast, where we explore the transformative power of inclusivity and the strength found in vulnerability. I'm your host, Lindsay Mazza, and with each episode, together we will go on a journey of reconnecting with all parts of ourselves to foster healing and inspire a more inclusive and compassionate world for all. So grab your headphones and settle in for soul-fulfilling discussions that will make you laugh, provoke thought, and be the catalyst for growth. Let's dive in.
Go.
Hi, everyone. Eric and I are back for another episode in our series, 1% The Empowered Man, and we're both so excited and privileged to welcome Kyle Gray today. If you don't know who Kyle Gray is, well, you've been living under a rock and you need to immediately find out because he is a multi-talented teacher who's known worldwide for his expertise in angels and spiritual energy. He is also a deeply committed practitioner of Kundalini yoga and meditation. Having spiritual encounters from an early age, Kyle was just 4 years old when his grandmother's soul visited him from the other side. Growing up, Kyle always had the ability to hear, feel, and see what goes beyond the natural senses, which eventually led him to discovering the power of angels and positive energy in his teens. Kyle's work takes sometimes complicated spiritual ideas and makes them accessible for the modern world. With over 20 years of experience, he brings a fun and exciting approach to spirituality, helping believers and the spiritually curious find their personal ability to connect. Kyle is an author of 9 books, and he's about to release his 9th on February 18th. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. And
So,
excited.
How's it going, man? How's your day? I think were you in Scotland right now? What time is
Scotland, it's 5 p.m. or
Yeah.
5:20 p.m. So yeah, going all right. I'm currently off training injured, so it's week 6 of my injury. So I'm just
What injury is that? What happened?
I hurt my meniscus and my LCL. So I'm a jiu-jitsu person, so yeah. But I'm still able to go to the gym. I'm just like, so I've been at the osteo and acupuncture today and doing all that kind of stuff. Self-care. Yeah.
I love that. So talk about how did you say it? Jiu-jitsu? Did I say it right?
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Like how far as you've been such a spiritual specimen in the world, how does that part of your life integrate into everything you do? Like the physicality,
Yeah.
maybe aggression, or just a different frequency, right? How did you get
Yeah,
into that space?
I got interested in jiu-jitsu by accident, actually. It was back in 2016 when I was writing a book called Light Warrior at the time. And this book is about facing your shadow and like finding the parts of yourself that remain kind of unhealed in order for you to step into purpose. And I felt like my dad and I had kind of a bit of work to do on our relationship. And he always mentioned to me that he would love to have done cage fighting. Like he wished he was into cage fighting because my dad did karate and all those things, and he loved street fighting when he was growing up. And he then said, I'd love to try MMA, like mixed martial arts. So I booked us for my dad's birthday, like private one-on-one sessions with a trainer, like how to use a cage and how to do like basic grappling skills. And basically what happened was my dad hated it and I loved it. And so my dad actually did, I think, 2 sessions out of like 10, and I did them all. And then I ended up continuing on to do jiu-jitsu, grappling, wrestling, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm still doing it.
Wow, it was like a soul call through your dad.
Yeah, and I was really scared. I'll be really honest. I was scared going in. So I had some time off because I also big into yoga. And then back in 2023, I was in Los Angeles for the summer, and my friend and I were like rolling in his backyard, like wrestling, just like guys do. And he's like, "Whoa, you keep like pinning me down. Like, how do you know how to do that?" And I was like, "Oh, I used to do this all the time." And he's like, you should go back to that. So when I came home, I just went straight to class. And then I was so nervous going in because like every guy, when you go into a new sport, your instant mindset is like, I need to be good at this. I can't be rubbish. I can't be, and at this point, I also was aware that I was going to a male-dominated space, and I'm gay, and I don't really necessarily find people like me there. And it it was a very positive experience from the get-go, like really positive and really welcoming. And yeah, and it's become like a fixture in my life. I go 6 days a week unless I'm injured, but
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I've been thinking about joining something like that myself, like mixed
yeah, I did
martial
it the last
arts.
time I was out in California as well. I always
Yeah.
vacation and train.
Because it's like a different texture, right? Of like manhood or just developing the shadow psyche. At least for me, it is.
Right.
Because I can be extreme. I'm even all the way light or I'm all the way dark. And so sometimes it's very embracive. It's very like, whoa. So sometimes I'm scared that I might hurt somebody, right? But I think
Right.
when I channel that energy in a positive way and join
Hmm.
a container like that to kind of let that energy come out, right? How is he? Because when I play sports, even when I'm playing like a charity game, celebrity game, I'm so competitive, but I can't like control it. Like I'm just
Oh,
having fun. Like I get really. Last time I played in a
right.
basketball game, I dislocated my shoulder. Like,
That's
okay,
Right.
extreme.
no, Eric, you're not getting paid for this, brother. Like, relax. But my
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
energy
Yeah.
is so, and I think as men, we want to learn, and this is why I'm so thankful that you said that starting out. How do we integrate our masculine with our feminine to be the full spectrum, to be whole? Like, and I feel like that's who
Right.
you are, and this is why you're successful, and this is why you have books, and this is why you can talk about anything and not feel judged or anything because you are you, authenticity. You're
Right.
you're authentic in your true expression. I think most men were not because we never had the opportunity to kind of tap into that side of ourselves, right? So,
Hmm.
can you just speak on that, like for your development, how you merged the two to create the life you have?
Right. Because I'll be honest, I think when anyone can maybe see my resume and you see, like angel expert, someone who's
Yeah,
interested like the unseen and channeling, and then you meet me, you might oh, that doesn't make sense. He's covered in tattoos and he wears chains and Jordans and like,
yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. And like I listen to like Migos in the car, so it's
right,
not
right.
all making sense. But the thing that I've realized is that when I first was exposed to spirituality, I had an image of how it looked like the
Mm,
beautiful people with the beautiful white robes on the beach, like fully enlightened. And then I realized very quickly into spirituality that that wasn't the actual truth. Like it was just the real spirituality is just authentically being yourself and getting to that kind of place where you are unapologetic about it. And that took me a long time to get there because, I've been involved in this since I was 15 years old. And to get from there to here is obviously 22 years. But the one thing that I found quite quickly in this journey was that everyone around me will be okay with who I am if I'm okay with who I am. And that was like the big, like, for me. I was like, oh, I can actually still listen to this music and wear these clothes and be who I am, but also do this too. And everyone else is going to be okay with it if I can be okay with it. So that was really obvious to me very early on. Like, just be cool with you, and then everyone else will reflect it back to you. And that goes to today. Like people will say to me, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I'm like, "Well, I actually channel angels and I speak to the unseen." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, And then I go into my what I do, but people are like, "I don't believe in that." And my answer is always, "I didn't ask if you believed in it. You asked what I did, and I tell you. I told you the answer."
mm,
And that's just it. And I think also being okay with other people not backing everything you're doing,
mm.
is also something that I had to learn very quickly. People are, I'll never forget this. I'll say, growing up in the west coast of Scotland, I'm from this town called Greenock. It's the most underprivileged town in all of the UK. It's the highest stabbing like
Really?
like town, and it's very violent. A lot of drugs, petrol bombs, all these things. It's very, and growing up there and being interested in what I'm interested in, it just didn't go hand in hand. And I'll never forget after, maybe few books down the line, and I went back to my hometown and I was taking my mother out, and then I went out for drinks with friends, and this guy comes up to me in this bar and he's like, I used to hate the sight of you. And I was like, whoa. And he's like, yeah, I just didn't like what you were doing. I didn't believe in it. I thought you were trying to steal money off all these people. And then I've seen what the life that you've created for your mother. And he was like, and I saw what you've done for her, and I saw the life you gave her, and I've seen you do all these different things, and it really changed my opinion of you. And I'm not so sure I believe in what you do now, but I definitely have respect for it. And I
Mhm.
was like, whoa, like I was
Wow.
not expecting that.
Yeah,
And I think that was just like testament to giving not giving up on the mission, like doubling down on it, and just continuously being true to me, and eventually people will join in that thinking.
and it had nothing to do about what you did for a living. It was that he was able to see that you were showing up in 100% authenticity,
Right.
right? And that's where you gain respect from people. And I think that it's so interesting because for me it was your Light Warrior book that like I had so many aha moments because I have always been spiritual. I was raised Catholic and I never aligned with organized religion because from a young age I remember thinking, but not everybody's included. And I don't think that's what this is supposed to
Right.
be. And so I always had my spiritual beliefs, but I never felt connected to the spiritual community for a lot of reasons. But the one was that there can be a lot of inauthenticity that is disguised in spirituality.
Oh my gosh.
And it's dangerous, and it's scary. And when I read your book about how you didn't relate to it, and you said something along the lines of you had like a fiery personality, like you intimated something like you didn't show up as this like like this really soft person. And I was like, I that's how I am. Like that's I feel like I'm here on a mission. I'm going to advocate for people. I'm going to stick up for those that need to be defended. And I think what's so beautiful about that is that you're using spirituality as this support system and teaching people that this is a tool and modality that can help you live your life's mission in an
Mm,
authentic way. And
right.
right, and I mean I love it. It resonated with me, and it's such a healthy balance between the masculine and feminine energies, which is also very unique, I think, in the spiritual world.
Hmm. And
Yeah,
I
you
think,
know,
oh, sorry.
no, I was saying I wanted to add to that. I think the beautiful thing about you, and after just meeting you here, you're so authentic.
Mhm.
Thank
And I
you.
love just people like that are real. Like, and me living in Hollywood for so long, you living in this fake real world because of fame, because of money, because of attention, and you realize like I'm not even being my real self. I'm from Baltimore. I'm from the hood. Like I grew up different. Like, I was telling my girlfriend last night, I was like, I used to be clean shaven and code switch and all these things to fit into a box because I thought that's what I had to do.
Right.
And
Mhm.
it wasn't until I went through my awakening in 2023 and I had that ego death, like, I don't want to be this guy anymore. Like, oh, you're
Mm,
so positive and you're so love and light. I was like, no, I will hurt you, right? Meaning, like, I'm a real person. I don't want to fake it anymore to make you happy. So, my
hmm.
biggest fear was I was afraid to disappoint people. And so, the fact that the spirituality that you've integrated, you're just you. And I think
Right.
growing up in a tough environment, there's a lot of spiritual bypass that's happened, at least in my life. Like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I don't cry. You know, like all this bullshit, to be honest. Like, but no,
Hmm.
but you're hurting inside. but you don't know how to embrace it because of fear of not being man enough, right?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we learn these things as men growing up, at least I did, and we take on those identities and realize like I'm hurting people, but I'm hurting. Oh, I'm helping people when I'm sad. And I'm like, why do I have to be this way? Why can't I just be sad and be okay with being sad? And why can't I just be happy and not feel criticized for being happy because I'm in a negative environment, right?
Hmm.
And I think most men want to be the full spectrum of who they are without being judged. Because I think
Right.
that's the biggest fear. And I think you don't care about being judged, right?
No.
And it's so good, but you can feel it in your energy and how you write and who you are. And I've always been like, this reminds me of your your cards, raise
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
vibration. I saw it in Bars and Noble. I was like, oh, I grabbed the cards. I'm like, that's what I'm known for, like high energy. But I didn't want people to see me if I wasn't in high energy, so I was inauthentic. You get what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I only want you to see me positive. Like, no, the world want to see you negative because that's part of who you are. And I
Right.
think men, we got to come back to like who we need to be for ourselves as well as the world. And I think the mix of, like Lindsay not being in a religious, spiritual environment that didn't fit her vessel. It's like, I don't want to be part of this fake and authentic community. I did church for 9 months out here in LA where I paid tithes, I didn't have sex, I didn't curse, and I felt like shit. Like, what am I doing?
Sounds like
But I
not a
thought
lot
I
of
was
fun at
doing
all.
right.
If
But
anything tells you not to have sex, it's probably
right.
that.
And I was like,
Right.
but then
Run.
then years later, I'm like, oh, that's the quickest way to source is through intimacy. What? What are you telling
Yeah.
us? Right? So it's just funny how we gotta unpack our parts of life that don't make sense and kind of hold on. What is life? That's not life because they're using the word God to control me to put me in fear. Why should I fear something I love? I used to have all these questions. Why is the sky blue? And who give words meaning? And like all these things. And I think now there's no question marks. People just want to know the answers to the
Right.
questions. And I think people like you show up and say, look, you're a warrior. Yes, we're spiritual beings, and some
Mhm.
of us are warriors. I'm a warrior. I know that. And it
Hmm.
feels good to be spiritual, to be loving, to be fearless, to be strong, to be authentic, and shit, to be angry. It's
Hmm.
okay because that's the full spectrum.
And also, like, I think there's a false narrative out there about what spirituality is and how it looks and how
Yes.
it needs to
Yeah.
be. Like, your personality has to be contained at all times. You can't
Mhm.
complain. You can't do all these things. And I've actually found I even happened to me today because I went to the osteopath today and they were 40 minutes late. And that
Mm.
really bugged me because I run on time. I'm a very clockwork type of person. And I was just like, I want to be really honest with you, and I'd rather you hear it from me than anyone else. But that really upset me today, and you disrespected my time. And
Ooh.
I was just about to leave. And I feel like just being really on, and I could tell that they're like, oh, he's supposed to be really positive. And I was like, and me telling you this is actually helping me stay positive because if I suppressed that, held that in, that was going to get on my nerves, but I'm going to tell you straight to your face and look you in the eye and tell you how I feel.
Right? And positivity doesn't mean you're boundaryless and that people should walk all over
Exactly.
you.
I'm
I
like,
think being the most spiritually authentic person is having a really strong sense of who you are,
mhm,
what integrity means to you, what your moral compass is. And it's when you're able to truly know who you are that in any circumstance that presents itself to you, you can always return to yourself and you're not looking for other people to tell you how you should show up, right?
mhm.
And you set a boundary there and you're allowed to.
And here we go.
That's right.
And
You'll
those
never
people
make
you
that
can
mistake.
you can build
They
a
will
life with,
not.
right? Like if I know now if I was in your presence and I asked you a real question, you would give me a real answer, not the politically correct answer to benefit
Right.
the moment.
Mm.
Like, you know how someone might say a word, like someone said something yesterday, like vast. The vast, and I was like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean? I was like, what does that mean? I don't know
The
what that word
vast.
means. Right. But what I'm saying is most people would act as if they know what it means to keep the
Yes.
conversation
Yes.
going in the
Yes.
scheme. And I'm like, no. I know I should know that word because it's so common. No, give me the definition.
Like,
Oh,
what you
okay,
mean by
that's what that means, right?
Right.
right?
I'm more of that person. Or someone's like, "You ever been off-road?" I'm like, "What's off-road?" I'm like, "What? You don't know what that is?" No, I don't. Tell me, right? When we
Hmm.
can have more people like that, the world is better because no one is acting as if they know.
Right.
That's right.
Because you should, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
important.
totally. So,
Yeah.
so Kyle, who did you like? You went on this journey. Did you have anybody that you looked up to, or what did that look like for you being, a man in the spiritual community? I'm really curious.
I mean, I think it's important to say, like, I came in as a boy and grew up as a man
Right.
in the spiritual community because I came in
Yeah.
super young. I was 15 years old when I had my first kind of big kind of spiritual experience. I had a spiritual awakening. I was 4 years old. I don't know how much you know of my story, but I was
You tell
paralyzed when I
us.
was younger. I had a virus called
Mm.
Guillain-Barré syndrome. So it's a virus
Mm.
that attacks the nervous system, and in order to protect itself, the nervous system kind of creates a paralysis. So I one morning just woke up, could not walk, and I was rushed into children's hospital. And then they thought I had meningitis originally, and then
Mm.
it turns out it was called Guillain-Barré syndrome. A lot of people actually got it after the COVID vaccine, believe it or not, the same
Wow.
Oh,
reaction.
Really?
wow.
GPS, it's called. It's like attached to the flu. It's like a nervous system response to like a high dose of the flu in your body kind of thing. Anyway, so during that time, my grandmother was also in a wheelchair, and we were both in wheelchairs in the same house at the same time. And I was a really nosy kid. I really loved to know what was going on in the next room. And because I couldn't run into the next room, I would close my eyes and imagine myself running there. And I would look on top of the stove and I would listen to the conversations that were happening in the next room. So I was constantly like, when I look back now, I realize I was like basically Jedi training myself to be psychic. I was opening myself up. And then um, a few months later, I started to get feelings back in my leg. And then another couple of months later, I learned to walk again in time for school starting. And this 1 week sticks out in my life forever, where my grandmother was moved to hospital. A neighbor called Margaret, who was a devout Catholic that got me into candle lighting and prayers, she was putting me to bed. And I remember going to bed as normal. My parents were at hospital with my grandmother, and I wake up through the night, and my grandmother is sitting at the bottom of my bed, and she like flips me on my belly and tickles my back, like up and down like this for me to go, and made me feel so loved and so cherished. And it was the next morning when I woke up, my mother was getting me, ready, and I was looking for my grandmother. I was like, "Where's Nana? Where's Nana?" And my mum couldn't answer, but actually, it was revealed to me later on that day that she had went to heaven. And
Mm.
from that very kind of like early age, I've had this deeper question as to if my grandmother went to heaven, then why did I see her? Like that was my first question. And the other question was, what happens to us when we die? Like that was the two questions that I have had in my being until, recent years. And it was and that kind of kick-started my journey. Now, just to go back on it, I think I picked up my grandmother because I was always heightening my awareness,
Mm.
always feeling beyond the room, always trying to. And so I think her soul came to see me like all souls come to visit their loved ones when they're crossing over. And I think because I was so heightened in my awareness that I was able to perceive her beyond the kind of the human lens. Um, but I think these moments happen to everyone, whether they see it or not. It's a different thing. And
Right.
then that just kind of kick-started a lot of challenges actually for me. So from around that time, I had this migraine headache that lasted 11 years. And it was like kind of fumbling around life. And then this is where I'm going with this story. I always felt like I didn't belong. I always felt like no one could understand the big feelings that I was having, and I was having big feelings. And I was also feeling everyone else's stuff as well, just like constantly overwhelmed by it. And this thing came on TV that changed my life forever. And it was called Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Wow.
And that's who I first looked up to. Like Buffy came on TV with her like Scooby gang of friends who were all essentially misfits. You know, all didn't really fit
Yeah.
into the norm. We were all a little bit different. They could have done better now that we know what we know, Lindsay, when you look
Yes.
back. Made it better. But
Yes.
you know, there was a feeling of, oh, I feel like that's my people. I feel like I belong in that Scooby gang. And that sent me down the kind of route of looking into the supernatural, the paranormal, magic crystals, energy healing. And then eventually a family friend had said to me, hey, have you ever considered angels, like guardian angels? Have you ever been interested in that? And I said, I'm quite opposed to the idea of angels because
Hmm.
a few weeks prior, my Sunday school leader said to me, hey, Kyle, it's God or Buffy. And I chose Buffy. And so I had kind of been ostracized from church
Oh.
being a teenager for choosing, you know, Buffy. And it was kind of like that show is satanic and it's bad and all these
Hmm.
things. And so I said, no, I'm really opposed to the idea of angels because I don't feel connected to Christianity anymore. It was my family friend. She said, well, angels are more than that. Everyone has a guardian angel. Everyone can connect with their angel. You don't have to have a gift to do it. They're mentioned in every religious tradition of the world, just with different names. Why don't you come upstairs and I'll let you pick an angel card? And so I
Oh.
went upstairs in her home, and it sticks out in my head because our bedroom was pure white and she had fluffy bed and like, you know, just so nice. And she pulled out the pouch and let me pick a card. And the first card I picked was synchronicity.
Wow.
Hmm.
And I was like, what does that mean? You know, like I've never heard
Hmm.
that word before.
Yeah.
And then I remember just reading it, something along the lines of, you know, a chain of events that have divine timing, you know, things that are being set out for a higher reason or purpose. And she said to me, angels can help you in your life. All you have to do is ask. And that was my first prayer. I said that night, if angels are real, help me with my headache. Because it had been 11 years of
Oh.
this headache, this migraine, like just constant nerve pain, you know. And I was on like medication that you would take after your evening meal and you would knock out, you know, that stuff that just like knock you
Hmm.
out. So I'd fall asleep sometimes sitting at the table, you know, on the sofa. And so I asked for that. And then the next day I woke up and I didn't have a headache. And I thought it was just maybe a coincidence, but it was really a God incidence. And it was like from that moment onwards, my mom was like, take your medicine. And I was like, I don't have a headache. And she went, okay, don't take your medicine. And so, and then eventually it just, you know, became a distant memory that I had had these headaches. And that was my first kind of demonstration that there was something else out there and it could help us.
Wow. And did you talk about this with your parents? The fact that you
So
saw
yeah,
your
they
grandmother?
knew. Yeah, so I'm really grateful for that time of my life because there was a psychic surge happening around the time I was a teenager. Like Buffy was on TV. There was a show called Crossing Over with John Edwards. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think we're
John
all
Edwards, and he
probably
was like,
about the same age.
yeah.
Yeah.
So John Edwards was on TV. There was James Van Praagh on TV. All these psychics were on TV and they
Hmm.
were doing readings. And so it was kind of like a craze. And so they're like, oh, he's just interested in this just now. And they're
Hmm.
thinking this is going to be a phase. Like this is just going to pass by. But by the time I was 15, I had gift vouchers and I bought my own angel cards. And then I started learning how to read these things and started attending a spiritualist church. Have you heard of that? I don't know if they have that where you are. It's
Spiritual
just
This
church.
church. I
so it's
don't know what
basically
that
if
is.
you go to a church and it's kind of like instead of a sermon from like a preacher, a medium stands on the stage and
Oh,
reads
wow.
people over the audience and they go, I'd like to speak to you. I have your dad here from the spirit world. And then he tell
Oh, that's
you.
dope. I would love that.
Oh,
All right.
wow. Why don't we
Wow.
have that? Let's
No,
create that.
like,
So that's what
hey,
they
you
would
get over
do.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we would like do readings for people in the audience, and it was like donation based, like you just go and you sit in the audience, and so I started going to that, and then um that kind of cracked me open. I took my mum one night and I whispered in her ear, I said, "Hey mum, this is what I was put on the earth to do," and she was freaked out. She was like that, like she always spoke about it, like when you said that to me, like it rocked my world because I was like, what am I supposed to do with this kid? He said to me that's what he was put on this earth to do. But I was determined from that age on that I was going to do it.
And how
And
old were you then?
I was 15.
Damn, just
So
15.
it was that summer, I'll
Wow.
tell you what happened. It was that summer I started getting good at reading these cards, and I was kind of like tuning in and picking things up and reading all these books. And I went to a family friend's barbecue. It was my mum's friend and all her work friends were coming. We're sitting outside. She lived in one of those apartment blocks. There's like maybe six in each block, but there was like three together, and they shared like a park at the back with like benches. And I remember we were sitting outside, and I'd set up a little like cloth with my angel cards, and I was going to do readings for everyone who was interested. And I started doing readings one on one for all these people. And there was this gay couple there, and one of them had a reading. He thought it was okay. And the second guy came, was the reading. It changed my life forever because I got him to put his hands on the cards, and I was holding his hands. And I said, just close your eyes and think about anything you would like support or guidance on. And in my head, I'm going, if there's an angel out there, come to me now. Like, I would want to speak to you if you've got any messages. And the weirdest thing happened. I started to hear Destiny's Child, Survivor, in my head. And it was
Oh
like,
my
I'm a
God.
survivor. And I'm like, and I said, hey, can you hear that? And he's like, no, hear what? And I was like, I can hear Destiny's Child, Survivor. And I said, I feel like it's a message for you. And he's like, Survivor? And then I closed my eyes and I said, if there is an angel here, thank you for making your presence known. And I opened up my eyes, and I was not ready for what happened next. This like light showed up behind the guy, like a
Ooh.
portal. This elongated golden being stood beside him, and it looked in to me, and I could hear it, and it says, tell this man he is the survivor. And I'm like, you're the survivor. And then he's like, what do you mean I'm the survivor? And I'm like, you are a survivor. This is why I'm hearing this song. You're a survivor. And he said, what do you mean? And then I just started speaking. I said, it feels like you've tried to leave the earth. Something else is keeping you here. And so I started like saying all this stuff to the guy, and he's freaking out. He's like freaking, and he's like, okay, okay, had enough, had enough. This is too much. This is too much. And then when he said stop, the angel just like disappeared.
Oh
And it
my
turns out this man had tried to take his own life several times, and every time he did, something got in the way and stopped the events unfolding. And he could never figure out why he was consistently saved. And then I'm picking up this being that's telling him that he was a survivor. And that was
Wow.
really like what opened it up. And then I don't know if you remember, but in those days, like word spread by phone, and
Yes.
my mother's home. My mother was like, "What happened at that party?" And I told her, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm never going to hear the end of this. Like, how am I going to deal with this?" And then the next day, my mother's house phone just kept going. Can I speak to the boy who can see angels? I'd like to
Oh,
speak to the boy who can see angels. And all these people just started coming to my mother's door and calling her and asking if they could speak to me because word had spread that I could see angels.
wow.
So the
I've had full
question,
body goosebumps the entire
yeah,
time you told that story. The back of my neck is
when
like
when is
I
the
tingling.
know.
documentary coming out?
I know.
When's the documentary? I'm like, we need a
Oh,
documentary.
Oh my
oh,
God.
really? Well, I don't know. It was just such
I
a
could
crazy.
vividly see that story in my
Me
mind's eye.
too.
I'm like, whoa.
I know, and I was so not ready, prepared for what was about to happen in my life, because I genuinely just people just started coming to my mother's house, and that every time I tried that something along those lines would happen. And then by the time I was 17, my mother's like, you should probably, register for your taxes now, because people started giving me donations to do this. And yeah, the government actually gave me a grant to start my business as a spiritual consultant. Yeah, like an
Bro, we need a documentary. What?
Yes.
Bro, you know how many people you gonna wake up their spiritual gifts because you're in it? You done it? It's so many people like you that's so afraid to answer the
right.
call.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I fully answered the call.
Wow. It's
So
like a
by the time I was
movie.
17, I had like a 6 month wait list just to do a reading to
What's
Oh,
the guy
yeah.
who did the Netflix thing? Tyler
Tyler
something?
Oh yeah,
Henry.
he's amazing, that
Amazing.
guy.
We need a
Yeah.
Cal Gray one now.
Yeah, we do.
No,
We
seriously,
do.
I'm
Oh
really
gosh.
like taken back of the story. I'm like, what? There's so
Yeah.
many people that's gonna awaken when they see this and feel this story.
It gets worse. I did an even better one that then put me on the map.
Yeah.
So, so when I got to, so I was 17 and I started doing all these readings, and it was going well, but I kind of burnt out too fast. And so I took a year off, and I went back to college and I studied urban and electronic music production. And I got interested in DJing and all these things. And then I actually just put away everything. I was like, Angels, I've had enough. Da, 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 da. And then this one morning, I had got a 9 to 5 job because I just was like, I need some time away. And I was an events coordinator, and I was DJing, and I was just like being a kid again. But people would call every day asking if they could speak to me. And this one morning, I remember waking up and I looked to the side of my bed, and this is nuts, by the way. And I looked to the side of my bed, and there's this 6'5" black man standing at the side of my bed. He looks like Obama. He
Wow.
looks like Obama. If you've ever seen my bicep, I have an Obama tattoo because this guy looked like him.
Oh,
And I looked at him and I went, oh, not again. Because I knew it was an angel. I knew it was an angel in my room. And he was coming with something. And I was like, not again. I was like, you have to leave. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm a DJ now. And the angel just stayed there. And then later on that day, I got this phone call, and it was the Scottish Sun newspaper, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for Kyle Gray, the Angel Whisperer," and I had never been called that before, and I was like, "Well, I used to be him, but I'm not anymore." And this woman was like, "Well, we've heard that you're particularly talented, and we would really like to meet you because there's a columnist position came up in our newspaper, and we would like to consider you for the position." And I was like, I'm not a columnist. I'm not a writer. I'm a high school dropout. What are you talking about? So I agreed to go to this meeting, and the woman interviews me, and I tell her the same story that I've just told you. And then the editor shows up, and he was like, okay, hurry up and do it. And I'm like, what do you mean do it? And he's like, just do it. Show me you can do it. And the woman was sitting taking notes, and I said, well, this woman here, I can see you're a guardian angel, but it wants me to bring you, there's a black and white cat here, and the angel's holding a black and white cat, and they're bringing a black and white cat to you, and it's sitting on your lap now, and it's magic that it's there. And the woman starts crying, and the guy goes, you're a spooky bastard. And it turns out the woman had a cat called Magica, and I said, it's magic that it's there. And the cat was called Magica, and it was black and white, and it had just been put down a week prior. And so he had heard about this. He knew that she was kind of clearly disturbed. He's like, you're different. I like you. We'll be in touch. And then just left the room with the woman crying. And I was like, I'm so sorry if I upset you. Your cat's okay. And then a week later, he asked me to go back into the office. He handed me an envelope of 5 letters, and he said, I want you to take these home, do what you did, but write me a response to each of these letters and send it to me by email. And I looked at them all and I answered 4 and I sent him them back. And he said, where's number 5? And I was like, I didn't have anything for it. There was nothing there. And he's like, how the fuck did you do it? And I was like, sorry? He says, how the fuck did you do it? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, that was a fake letter. We were testing how good you were. And I
Wow.
was like, well, I didn't know it was a fake. I just didn't have anything for it. He said, I'm sending a photographer to your house. And the photographer comes and they take my photo and then he phones me back and said, we're going to print these letters in the newspaper. How about this much a week? And I was like, sorry. He's like, you've got the job. You've got the job. How about this much a week? And I went, okay, I guess. And then the following Tuesday, my responses to those letters was printed in the national newspaper, 500,000 readers a day. And I was called the Angel Whisperer. And that Friday of that week, the postman comes to my home and he said, did you get a job in the newspaper? And I said, I think so. And he said, well, this is for you. And he had 2 sacks of handwritten letters, 5,000 handwritten letters my first week of the newspaper. And that was basically how I turned my life around. And that day I woke up with the angel standing at the side of my bed was basically them saying, you're being recruited. And me answering those letters and letting it print was me actually saying yes. It was the day I said yes to the angels. That's all I can say.
Wow. Yeah, we need a movie. We need a documentary. We need a docu-series. Like, I'm serious.
Processing. Yeah.
Because I believe now, especially I feel like we're having this ego death here in LA with the fires, a rebirth. This is the megaphone for the world, right? Everything comes out of Hollywood. It's a lot of distortion and darkness, right? And they make these movies that got like subliminal messages in it, subconscious, MK Ultra, all this stuff. We know, right? However, someone like you with your energy and your frequency in a movie or a documentary pushed out to the world is actually going to help the world heal like those letters and that columnist did for you, for those people, right? Because
Yeah.
people think like, oh, you just need 10 movies and you need 10 books. No, you just need one book. You need one opportunity, one phone call, one conversation, one podcast episode, one show. Your whole life will change. You get what I mean? Like,
For
and you
sure.
are just so good at what you're given in this lifetime that I promise you, black, white, Indian, Mexican, Asian, Australian, you will heal. I mean, you already doing it, you know that. But for people to see it in like a red carpet, I don't know. I'm just getting all these hits.
It's funny you say that. I always say no to whenever like casting
Yeah,
get in touch. I'm just like, because my biggest concern is with spirituality. Anytime I've done TV, for example, it's always made into entertainment, and I'm always like really
yeah.
worried about that. Even that newspaper I worked for I went on to write for 7 years there. It was always like entertainment, it was always um and it
What
always
sign are you?
involved. Sorry?
What sign are you?
What do you think?
Leo.
I'm a Pisces,
What day? I'm a Pisces.
23rd of
Oh, okay.
February.
It's coming
Yeah.
up. Okay. What's your
Yeah.
moon and your rising sign?
My rising's Leo. You're
Oh,
right.
I'm about to say, I know. Come
I'm
on.
a Leo
I'm not
rising
crazy.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you're supposed to be seen because of the
Yeah.
gift. That's what
Yeah.
it is. The world needs to see you because of your Piscean gift.
Mhm.
Psychic,
Right.
you can get into the Akashic record, the angel. Yeah, that's what literally, like, I'm like, this guy is great at what he does. He needs to be seen on a bigger platform for the world, not for the world he serves, but for the world that people don't even know about him.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, because even if people don't come to you to work, your energy is going to heal them on the screen. You get what I mean?
Right.
It's like they walk into that and they're like, wow, I just left. It's like you go to church and you leave and you just feel lighter. Like, damn, what just
Yeah.
happened? And you go look Kyle Gray up.
Yeah. But I know what you're saying. You don't want it to be sensationalized, right? You don't want it to
Yeah.
be this like, yeah.
Special either. Like I know I'm like goes fuck, but I at the same time I'm also like I don't want it to be about me. I need it to be about you and your angels. Like I'm just like I'm bringing the. I want to make angels cool again. I keep saying that all the time. Like that is.
But
I
that's
think
the
you're
thing.
doing that.
Yeah, making it about you is making it about people because the people are in you. You are the world in you. You get it? Because I had the same thing. No.
Yeah.
We wanted to make it about you through us because when you make it about you, we can see we. You get what I mean? And then
Yeah.
you're like, oh. that's how God uses us as, prophets or
Yeah.
leaders or spiritual people because it's the world is coming through your vessel because you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for the world. And this is why people are coming to you because people have to submit to the power that's coming through you. It's
Mm,
divine. It's like it's not yours, it's
Mhm.
higher ups. It's like, no, we're gonna go through the body of Kyle Gray and we're gonna let this frequency come out of him in his
mm,
gift. And that's how he's going to channel and heal the world. And I believe in these times with all this chaos, what you bring is just going to bring another trajectory of life. And it's the truth consciousness coming through your vessel. I got a client, she's an angel reader. She's writing a book and she's like, she read my angels. And I'm like, it changed my life. They're like, this is why I've been doing all this. So to meet you and hear your story, I'm inspired. Like, he's really it. Like, like you're really it in the flesh and everything you do. Like even your books. Like when I look at your books, your transmission through your books, like the coloring, the words, the font, how you speak, how you articulate, like everything about it is so real that it makes sense. Like you
mm.
just
Thank
make
you.
sense.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.
You get what I mean? Like I've been around so many powerful people that I just get it when I'm in that presence. Like, oh, he's it. He's the
Mhm.
real deal. And we
Yeah,
need more real deal people
totally.
pushed out into the world so people can get a better message of what they should be like or try to embody instead
Mm,
of the old Hollywood as we saw for the last 30 years.
Mhm.
But yeah, so
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe a show or Netflix is coming next week or tomorrow when you get off. Talk to the angels. Angels,
Call it in.
what
Just
does Cal want?
Oh my
Right?
God. Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
exciting because it's like people like you do exist and more people want to step into it. They just feel afraid, right?
Sure.
And the
So
coolest thing about angels, I think, is that it's the one area of spirituality that I think most people can buy into at least a little bit. Like, I feel like,
I know.
right?
Sure.
Like, it's like even people who are, um, it's funny because I'll tell you the story. So I was in Scotland in December and I brought your cards with me, and my mom and I we were traveling with my mom's sister, and she's 75 and she's dealing with cancer for the second time, and she lost her husband during COVID, and she's had in a very, very traumatic way, and she's really, really struggled since losing him. Like, she hasn't been able to sleep in their bedroom again. She's very lonely. And because she was also going through cancer treatments, she lost him and then was isolated for like 2 years in her home because she had a,
Holy
a
smokes.
suppressed, so it was a very dark time for her. And so we were in Sterling, and I brought these cards with me, and I could really tell that she was struggling. And I was like, you know what? I want to pull some cards. Are you open to pulling some cards? So we started to pull your cards. I had two decks with me, and I can't even remember what the cards were, but they were obviously the exact ones she needed. And then as we spent the next 10 days together, I said to her, I was like, ask for some signs, because I'm telling you that he's
Right.
here with you. Your husband is here with you. I'm telling you that he is not living in the moment of his death like you are, and you are surrounded by angels. So as we went through the 10 days together, all of these signs and synchronicities came through consistently. And I found this little store, spiritual store in Sterling, and I went and I bought her a deck of one of your decks, and she
Oh,
started to pull them daily. And by the end of the time together, she was like, you don't understand. Like, I now believe angels are real. I've seen it over the last
mm,
week and a half. And she's like, it changes my day. I pull Kyle's cards, and it totally shifts how I feel about everything. I feel like there's hope. And it was just like that simple shift of like showing her, and I was like, you got to ask them, and she asked them, and like the stuff that happened was magic over the next 10 days. Like, they showed themselves to her, and it's beautiful, because I think when people experience loss and grief, it really is
mm,
a door into opening up your mind if it's previously been closed off to it.
for sure. And
Yeah.
like I I love that you did that. So thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I don't know if you how much you know about me, but my mother just passed away in November. And so
Oh,
like
I'm sorry.
my experience of like what I do, and then like my experience of loss has actually like, it's made what I do even more important. Like
I
it's
know.
became even more real, like
Mm,
even more real. Like the experience of like, because my mother and I set up a password system, so that she would be in touch with me with the password, so that I knew that she made it to heaven, and.
Um,
My mother said to me, well, the week coming up for my mother's death, I had these experiences, and I saw an angel standing behind my mother, just 2 weeks before she passed away. And I called my cousin. I was like, "Hey, I've just seen an angel standing behind mum," and it was completely cloaked in darkness. And I was like, and it was all dark, and I was a bit weirded out by it. And that night, I said a prayer, and I asked why the angel was so dark, and I heard the voice come back to me, and it said, because if the angel was to, the reason the angel, if the angel was to remove their hood, you'd be blinded by their brightness, is what I heard. And what I
wow.
realized was the angel was the angel of the light, and it was going to take my mother to the light, but it wasn't the right time. So they had their cloak on, but when they took it off, she would go through them, and she'd be taken there. And my mum said to me, "Don't tell me if I'm dying. I don't need to know." I said, "No problem." She says, "But do you remember the password?" And when I was little, growing up in a single parent household, my mother would send people to pick me up at school if she was late getting out of work, or, and the password was sausages. So someone would pick me up at high school or school and be like, "Hey, Kyle, your mom asked me to pick you up, sausages." And then I would go in the car. So my mother checked with me throughout my spiritual life and career, like, "Do you remember the password?" And I said, "Yes." So then the day my mother passed away, I called a family friend who's an interfaith minister, asking her if she would, lead the service for my mother's life. And she said, "Hey, I've got this memory of going to visit your mum a few years ago, and she told me about when you were little, all you would eat was these little Willy Winky sausages. Why do I keep thinking of that story?" And I said, "Because the story's the password. My mum told me she would send me the word sausages as soon as she got to heaven." So, like just that cracked me open. And I've had all these things happen now. Like, and I seen her. I saw my mother. She came to me.
I've seen my
Um,
dad too.
have you?
Yeah, like when he passed, I immediately started hearing him. And it was like,
Ugh.
I don't want to get
A
emotional, but
shiver.
yeah,
Oh,
it was like, I'm here, everything's fine, I'm right here with you. And I was like, is this grief? Like, what is this? Like, cause like his body hadn't
ah,
even been taken out of the house yet. Like, it wasn't even cold. And I'm like hearing things. I'm like, what's happening? And
mm,
then, in the tornado of, we packed some stuff up for my parents' house. My mom came to stay with me. So she threw everything in a bunch of bags that she thought she would need. And you have to deal with the funeral home right away. But when she needed some of my dad's documents for the funeral home and we couldn't find them. We were at their house looking for things, and she was really stressed. And I said, "Oh, Dad, if you know where they are, can you tell me?" And he goes, "They're not here. They're at your house in the closet in the guest bedroom." So I'm like, where did that come from? So I don't say
right.
anything to my mom because I was like, I need to test out. I need to make sure that this is real. So I say to her, I was like, you know what, Mom, we can come back tomorrow. Maybe it's not here. So we come back to my house. I immediately go into the closet, and there they are sitting in an envelope in the guest bedroom closet.
Whoa.
And then it just started to happen from there. It like started to increase. And I will see him often when things come to me when like I'm in the in between state, like almost asleep.
Right.
And then I'll be like jolted from my sleep of like, whoa, what was that? But it's crazy how the loss of a parent or someone really close to you can totally shift your ability.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on. You know what that is? I just say the heart's a walkie-talkie. Like,
Yeah.
grief opens your heart up in a way that you've never been opened up before, and it's like a
It's true.
walkie-talkie. You can like speak to love in all dimensions when that's open enough. So
Yeah.
it's
And I think
incredible.
it's because you totally, when you go through something as that is so intense and you're grieving, you have no ability to resist, right? So like in your grief, you surrender.
Hmm.
And you sort of take your I don't know, your mind gets out of the way because one, you're in total grief brain, and in two, and it's like all you want to, you're like begging for a sign that they're okay, and it kicks that door open. It's so fascinating.
It is amazing. I love
Yeah.
it.
So, Kyle, do you have any, I don't know, any tips that you could give people? I mean, we are speaking to men, but I mean, people just generally about how they can tap in further, or things that you incorporate to sort of stay grounded in your
Yeah, here's some
practices.
things.
Yeah.
I think this is a really helpful thing for people to hear, first of all. Like I looked at the stats coming in here. I think a lot of men out there, if they hear this, they're like, that sounds cool, but I'm also, like we discussed at the start with Eric, don't want to be judged.
Yeah.
I don't want to like be seen as weird or whatever. So in the US alone, it says the stats are 89% of people in the US believe in angels. That's really a big high percentage. And
Mhm.
the other stats say that one in every 10th person has had a direct encounter. So every 10th person in the US, for example, has had some sort of sign, reminder, or direct experience that there is something else out there. So if you're interested in this and you want to open up more, but you're a little bit concerned, it's actually not a huge taboo to be interested in this. One in every 10th person
Mm.
has experienced it, and 89% of the people in the US believe in it. So, if you want to take it a little bit further, I think just what we discussed with Lindsay is like being open to a sign. Just being like, if there
Mm.
is something else out there, I would love to experience you in some level. Like, give me a sign, I always say thank you. Thank you for bringing me a sign to let me know you're here. I think is the first experience, and then be open to whatever comes your way. And it might be someone pulls in front of you and they have a banner on the back of their car, or you see something on a receipt, or you hear a song on the radio, but whatever it is, be open to being reminded that you don't walk this path alone.
Mhm.
And if you see a
Beautiful.
sign, the ultimate message is you are on the right track. Because
Mhm.
signs only show up when you're in alignment. So if you don't see a sign, it means a change needs to be made.
Signs only
Mm.
show up when you're in alignment. Tweet of
Right.
the moment. That's real.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because like most people, like when a sign shows up, does that mean I should go with this or not go with this? But the sign only shows up. It's like the angels high-fiving you. They're like, this is it. Let's go.
Mhm.
Signs will show up when you're on the right track. And if you don't see a sign, it's because there is something in your life that is not authentic and it needs to be.
Uh,
Ooh, I love
so
that so
with
much.
that, from that, what's your expertise or understanding of numbers? Because I think that's more relatable to most people. 11,
Mm.
11,
Right.
2, 2, 2, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3,
Yeah, I know them
3,
all.
3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I see them
like,
all day long.
is that
I wrote
also a
the whole
sign as
book.
well?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did number 0 to 999 in my book. But yeah, so when numbers show up, it's like the new way angels are getting in touch with us. So
See, that's good to
Um,
know.
anyone you see like 111, 222, 333, they're just like the angels are trying to get your attention. But there is a deeper meaning for each one.
Right.
So ones are about being in alignment, twos are about service to other people, three's about the masters. So like Jesus, Buddha, all the ones who walked the earth before us, they're surrounded. Fours are the angels in force. So you get lots of fours. The angels are in
Yes,
force.
I do. 4, 4, 4.
Fives are about change, so they are. Six is actually the master teacher, but it tells you to bring your ego into alignment. So if you
Mm.
see 666, people are like, oh my God, the devil's out
Devil.
for me. It's
Yeah.
not. It's actually the devil on your shoulder, which is your ego, and it's running the show. And
Oh,
it's like,
that's really good. That's
yeah,
so good. I've never heard it like that.
yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
Sevens are the manifestors. You see sevens, it means something's going to happen. Eight means you're about to change direction on your path. And nine is the divine feminine.
Mm.
Ooh.
Well, that's like 111, 222, 333.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
nine's the
Wow.
divine.
What's your life path number? You know your life path number?
Yeah, 33,
Oh, you're a
6.
master teacher. No wonder. It makes sense.
Yeah. What's yours?
11.
Oh, wait, oh, master teacher as well.
Healing.
Yeah.
Yours, Lindsay?
It's an 8.
Oh, you're an 8.
Give me
Hmm.
that money.
Brilliant.
This was great.
Yeah, this was great, man. Kyle, brother, I mean, I salute you, man. I mean, I prayed before I got on, but that story was impeccable. Like, you're a great story. Have you done a TED Talk before, or like, do you speak?
I do. I do a lot of talks, but
Mm.
I've done a TED talk. No,
Yeah, I think
I
you should do one
never.
on angels.
I know. Maybe I will.
Yeah,
I
because
the
that's
right angle to the Angels previously, but I think with the stats that I have now and the information, I think I've just always been speaking in a very spiritual space. Always, I'm always a little bit more in the woo space than I am on the.
Hmm.
I think the universe is receptive to it now. I think people are open to hear about the angels and angel readings and just God, spirituality, truth consciousness. Because we're seeing our 3D being distorted. Like, I don't believe nothing I see anymore. This can't be life.
I know.
Unseen, because Pisces is in the North Node for the next 18 months. I think this is where people are collectively trying to
Mm,
figure out, okay, what is my unseen self telling me?
right,
And
for
it's the
sure.
angels through Kyle Gray.
And I think
Yeah.
this is that if anyone hears this and they're like, I wish the world would be more honest, I wish the world would be more authentic. I think the way out is in. Like, in order for the world to be a more truthful place, we all need to step into our own. Like that's just standard.
I love that. This is what I was talking about last week on a podcast about how, no, you and I, Eric, the episode that I released today
Yeah.
about how everybody's complaining about what's going on in the world and moaning and like, oh, it's so awful. Look what Trump's doing to people. But it's like the only way we're gonna change is if we start showing up stronger for the people that need us to show up. So step into your power because the complaining's not gonna change anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, I'm so
Well,
grateful.
yeah,
Yeah.
Kyle, how can we find you? Where should we
Yeah.
follow you? Do you have like a Patreon or Discord? I mean, where's your community? I mean, I know Instagram, but give us how
Yeah,
we.
I get Instagram's the best place to find me, Kyle Gray UK. You'll find me in all great bookstores as well. Just look
Hmm.
up spirituality. You should find me in Barnes and Noble and stuff. And yeah, I've got two spaces. I teach an angel thing every month called Angel Team, and then I also have a Kundalini yoga platform called Raise Your Vibration with
Mm,
2,000 members where we do Kundalini together. It's fab.
well,
So
congrats.
Cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
By the
Yeah.
it.
way, do you do any retreats? Are you in the retreat space when you host retreats?
No, I've done them over the years, and yeah, I've always found it a lot to take on.
It's a lot of energy. Yeah.
It is, and I feel like the whenever I've done them, I've had like 90 plus people on the retreat, so it's just like a big container to hold.
Yeah.
But I'm going to come back to it. Now that my mother's transitioned, for the last 4 years, I've just really poured my love
Mm.
into keeping my mum well. And now that she's moved, I think my life's just about to. She's my new PR person.
Your mom. Your
Yes, I
mom.
love that. So
Yes,
beautiful.
mom. That's
Yeah.
love.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank
Love.
you.
Yours.
Thank you for joining me on the Hiding in Plain Sight podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. Feedback and episode ideas helps us reach more listeners. I would love to connect with you further. You can visit my website at lindsaymaza.com and add me on Instagram at lindsayBmaza. Until next time, keep sharing your stories and vulnerabilities because one story at a time connects us all.